Let's go on to the subject of sanctuary, which has been much talked about. In fact, President Trump spoke out on this in a recent interview with respect to the state of California. We'll put up the quote now from what President said about sanctuary, that he would actually cut off funds to states or cities that actually gave sanctuary. It says, well, I think it's ridiculous. As you know, I'm very much opposed to sanctuary cities. They breed crime. There's a lot of problems. If we have to, we'll defund. We give tremendous amounts of funding to California. Obviously, the voters agree or they wouldn't have voted for me. You have come out in support of sanctuary. What is sanctuary?
Well, actually, what we came out and did was issued a guideline to explain what local governments have to do if the federal government requests help in enforcing immigration laws, and what you don't have to do. And a lot of it is voluntary. There's a lot of this that cities and other local governments do not have to cooperate with the federal government on a lot of their efforts to enforce the immigration laws. There is no definition of sanctuary. The reason I issued a guidance to governments in New York that want to refuse to participate in some of the federal efforts to enforce immigration laws was that there is no definition of sanctuary. This really is about what the federal government is allowed to require states and cities to do and what is federal overreach. And we sent forth a guidance that some of my colleagues, I'm pleased to say, in other states are actually now using, outlining what the parameters are of what the feds can force a local government to do and what they can't force a local government to do. So sanctuary really is a misnomer. There is no dictionary definition of it. It really is, again, a question of the reach of federal power. And as far as Mr. Trump's assertion, there are severe limits on the ability of the federal government to attempt to coerce a local government into complying with its requests based on withdrawing funds. The funds can't be used in a coercive way, and they have to be directly tied to the program at issue. So Mr. Trump, I think, hyperbolically overstated the power of the federal government to punish a state like California if it chooses not to make its law enforcement officers agents of federal immigration.
So if a municipality in the state of New York actually did give whatever is defined as sanctuary and its funds were cut off, are we looking at another lawsuit?
I don't think the federal government would even attempt to cut off general funds. The law is so clear that the funds have to be directly related to the program at issue, and there's a second prohibition against the funds being cut off in a coercive way. So I don't think the others in the administration, keep in mind, there is a professional cadre of lawyers and responsible policymakers under Mr. Trump that are going to temper whatever actions he takes in many cases. The reason this executive order on immigration came out so sloppily and so bizarrely was that apparently it was hidden from the experts at the Department of Homeland Security and State and sprung on them, as well as all of us, in a surprise move on a Friday night.
There are other policies the Trump administration has talked about adopting and is taking steps toward adopting. Are you looking at any of those as possible grounds for litigation?
Yes, absolutely. My job is to represent and protect the people of the state of New York. And if there's a radical agenda that would harm those people, I'm out to protect them. I mean, we have families in New York who can't get out to where medical care they need. There are people who are separated from their spouses by this travel ban who can't get back together with their families. So we're out to protect New Yorkers from whatever harm comes from federal overreach, whether it is an effort to cut back environmental laws, whether it's discrimination against the LGBT community. Our founders left a lot of power at the state level. That was a very wise decision in retrospect. And I can speak for my colleagues. I've never seen as strong a commitment by the Democratic AGs to protecting the people we represent and enforcing the law against any federal overreach by the Trump administration.
You mentioned health care. Could repeal of Obamacare trigger a lawsuit from the state of New York?
It depends on what they do. Absolutely. Interference in the funding of health care, although obviously they're finding that more difficult to unravel than they thought in the first place.